guys, it's Reagan and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. This reading vlog I'm so excited about because it is a bit seasonally appropriate. That's right, this week I'm gonna be reading some spooky, scary reads, which cross your fingers for me because typically I'm not the biggest horror reader because I'm a bit of a chicken, but I'm so excited about these books that it felt like a must do, you know? But without further ado, let's chat about the books I hope to read this vlog. So I won't lie, the TBR for this video is a little bit hefty. Starting off with these two books, I have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is one of my favorite authors, and this is this author's like Gothic horror haunted house tale. We follow our main character who visits her cousin who's having a difficult time after recently getting married. So she decides to visit her, move in with her for a bit, and the house that she's now living in is invading her mind. And I'm very curious about it. And then the second book I want to check out is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This seems like a really fun, like 80s horror story. It follows two best friends who go skinny dipping, and then afterwards one of the girls begins to act very, very differently. And her best friend begins to look into it and thinks, I think my friend needs an exorcism. I feel like the audiobook for this could be a lot of fun too, which I might listen to, but we will see. But regardless, I hope to finish both of these books over the course of this vlog. But wait, friends, there is one more book that was not supposed to be on any TBR this month, and that is Valor by John Gwen. It happened. I tried to not start this book or allow myself to start this book because it wasn't on my TBR for this month, but I read, if you saw my last reading vlog, Malice, and just really liked it, and the ending was so explosive. I was like, I need to know what's gonna happen next. So I'm allowing myself to also read this book throughout the week. My main priority are definitely these two books, but I'm also gonna be reading some of Valor too in the background. These are the theme. This is, extracurricular, you know? But that is what I hope to read over the course of this vlog. 3 books I'm honestly really excited about, and I'm hoping at least some of them will scare me a bit. Honestly, I feel like all 3 have an opportunity to scare me a bit because the Fate of the Fallen series, the Faithful in the Fallen series, is really intense and rather dark too. So here we are. Look at all those pages. Wish me luck. Hi friends. Well, I am waiting for some water to boil because I am in the process of making lunch. I thought I'd do an OOTD because I'm fully in my fall delusion, wearing sweaters in the house. The AC is the fall temps around here, people. And what's fun too, I love changing wardrobe season to season. And one thing I do also is I change out my everyday frames, or I add some like seasonally oriented frames like these tortoise ones, which are my favorite. These are the Muse Merrill with glassesUSA, who I work with frequently, though this is not sponsored. But I will link these down below because they're always on sale. And they are my favorite, and my offer with glassesUSA is still ongoing. So if you're interested, all that'll be linked down below. But yeah, fall vibes are here, and we're gonna go make lunch now because I'm hungry. I wanted to show off my fit. Sandwich complete. Now it's time to go watch a little bit of Bravo and then get back to work. Making myself some coffee, and I am going to go sit down and do some reading. Hello, I have a reading update. I read 150 pages of Valor by John Gwen. This is all I'm gonna read of this book today, and then I'm gonna pivot to another read as promised, but it was just looking at me and I said, I'll sit down and read a little bit of it and see how it goes, and I flew through it. Oh my gosh. So here's the thing. The first book, Malice, which I vlogged the entire reading experience of, and I'll link down below if you haven't seen it, but the first book is pretty slow. It's all set up, and the dominoes begin to fall at the very end of that book, and this book basically takes place immediately after the events of the last book, and the dominoes are just falling so quickly. It makes this book so compulsive to read. One, for a variety of reasons, not only just the plot, but you're shifting from so many different perspectives, and there's so many different intense things happening at once that, like, it's all of these mini cliffhangers all of the time. And because this book is multi-POV in an interesting way, you're constantly being introduced to new characters, which also means you're consuming different scenarios that you've already been introduced to from different angles. So you're learning new things from reading from these perspectives because they have their own feelings and plans and perspectives about what is going on. So it just gives you more information. But to take a back step up If you're not familiar, this series is called The Faithful and the Fallen, and it is a series that is like a classic setup of good versus evil. This is set in a landscape which was destroyed by a war like thousands of years prior between humans and giants, but kind of instigated by the gods themselves. Now there is a prophecy, and this war, this great war, is on the precipice of happening again, and you see kind of the different coalitions of groups of people like trying to prepare for it in different ways. There's basically 3 different groups of people. There's people who are mysterious, who already knew about this prophecy, already had concepts about it was incoming, and they're trying to inform and gather their people for good or for evil to make war on the behalf of like the good guys or the bad guys. Then 2, there are the groups of people who are really like craving power, either because they know they're bad and they want power, or there's people who think they're doing a good thing but still want power and are being influenced by these other people who again are like trying to move the pieces in a certain way. These people are important within this world. They have a lot of influence, and you see these characters and characters surrounding these people kind of interact with politics. And then lastly, you have characters that who are not powerful and didn't know about anything happening and are kind of thrown into various perilous situations. And these people tend to be my favorite because they're just like trying to survive and they're trying to pivot around. And this series has so many characters. There's definitely some main characters, but there's a lot happening. And it kind of reminds me of like Game of Thrones in that way, with just all the different POVs. This book isn't written like Game of Thrones, and it's not stylized like Game of Thrones at all, but just comparison for like the pure amount of characters and perspectives, if you know. It definitely utilizes some Chosen One tropes. We have some characters like Corbane and his friends and his sister and his family who are important and incredibly likable, who were introduced to in book 1, but there's so many people in book 1, and all sad to say is it is so intense, and the politics are very complex and very, very layered, and a lot of time has actually already taken place since book 1, so you kind of see how things progress. There's battles, there's just a lot of maneuvering, and I've been on edge the whole time because I'm so anxious, because like things just feel like they're spiraling out of control. But you know me, I love political intrigue, I love multi-POV, and this is definitely that. The combat's also very well written, very gruesome, very gruesome. But yeah, obviously, I mean, I read a good amount pretty quickly, but you know, that's that. I am going to read other books though, because this is also going to be a horror vlog, so we're going to pivot to that tonight. Or not. I'll read probably a little more of this book this week, but I'm going to prioritize reading my other 2 books starting now. Hello, a couple of key updates. 1 is I showered. 2, we've unlocked a new angle, I think. And 3, well, I've decided I'm going to start Mexican Gothic. This is going to be my first primary read of the vlog. Before I get to any more reading, I'm going to do a cozy gaming session. Look at my like Halloween switch case. Isn't it so cute? So I'm going to turn on my cozy lights, put Gilmore Girls on, and it's time to play Fae Farm. So I've actually decided to continue watching The Ultimatum, but Fae Farm is definitely still happening. Hello, you can see me. Dinner tonight is a leftover braised chicken dish I made yesterday. It's a spicy Korean chicken stew. It's really good, very spicy. And I'm also making some rice, and I'm about to steam some broccoli, and we're gonna get back to The Ultimatum. Dinner is served. All right, no more reality TV for Matilda and me. We are officially in bed, and I'm about to get serious with my reading again. Though I have read actually quite a bit. I've read 150 pages so far for this vlog. Not bad. But we're gonna start Mexican Gothic, which I'm really looking forward to. Perhaps starting a scary Gothic-leaning horror story at night in bed alone. Maybe not my smartest of moves, but I'm really looking forward to this because I love this author's writing. I love the concept and setup of this, so I'm just looking forward to experiencing it. I feel like it's going to be a complete vibe. So let's begin. Good morning, everyone. Have not had coffee yet. It's brewing, but I do have a reading update before I sit down and hopefully read a good chunk of this morning. So I read 85 pages before I succumbed to my sleepiness last night, and I'm really liking this book. It's a vibe. It's spooky and disconcerting for like various reasons. So first off, we're introduced to our main character, Naomi, and I love Naomi. She's such a fun and incredibly likable character to root this book. She's a socialite, she's beautiful, she's flighty. She's just like one of those people that can like dabble in everything because she's incredibly talented and beautiful and charming. And she just kind of, at this juncture of her early 20s, she's not really looking to like seriously lock down herself in anything. She just kind of wants to vibe but learn, and she's smart. One thing that she is really passionate about is anthropology. But at the beginning of the book, we're introduced to her as she's called back home early from a party by her father, and at first she thinks it's because she went with a boy that he doesn't approve of, but it's because he actually received a letter from her cousin Catalina, who recently got married in like a very rushed marriage to a man they didn't really know or expect her to marry to. And the letter was very strange. Not only did it claim that her husband was poisoning her, but she just didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So clearly he was concerned, our main character is concerned. So her father decides to send Naomi to go check this out, check on the health and safety of her cousin, and also just try to get like a sense of like what is going on in her new husband's home. So we follow Naomi as she travels out of Mexico City, out of the glitz and glamour of her life, to this far away, like crumbling family estate. And she gets there and it's like, oh, it's so unsettling, like immediately. Obviously the remote crumbling manor is a very well-known trope within Gothic stories, but there's an interesting twist that the author has placed, which has just made it even more uncomfortable, and that is the family that Catalina is married into is a long, proud British family who was moved to Mexico as, you know, colonists, as settlers to basically take resources generation over generation over generation. And they currently have no money at all, but the pride and the superiority and the perspective that they have on their genes and their, you know, heritage as being a British and white person has stuck around. So there's like a lot of different layers of creepiness, and Naomi gets there. She's concerned about her cousin, who she hasn't been able to really get a lot of info from. Hasn't had the opportunity to see her cousin a lot. She meets her husband, who is like a very unsettling person. Like sometimes he's charming, and then sometimes he's, or charming, I'm gonna put that in parentheses, and sometimes he's just like cold and creepy and weird. And keep in mind, there's always this confusion that Naomi and her family has as to why Catalina even married this man. Like, how did he convince her, one, her charming, beautiful cousin, who's also wealthy, to marry into this poor, like, family that's not even treating her very well? So like there's just this larger mystery happening with the marriage too. The patriarch of the family, who's this very old man who has very problematic and uncomfortable ideas and is constantly trying to talk to our main character about anthropology and eugenics, as you can imagine. Those lines of conversations with this old white man are really unsettling. We have a few people who work here. We have a few like slightly connected family members. And just immediately the house and the people living in the house, it just feels very, very off and very uncomfortable, especially in contrast to our like bright, charming, glittering main character who is super smart. And I just hope she absolutely tears everyone apart, but like, ooh, it grips you right away because it's just like, you feel like you're walking around and it's just like not a comfortable time, you know what I mean? There's still much for me to read, but you get a sense that there's lots of secrets hiding in the house, hiding in the walls, hiding in the history of this place. There's like been references to a few things like plagues that have killed a lot of people off within the family. There's like a rogue daughter who also like murdered a bunch of people. There's just a lot of really strange and dark things that seem to center this house and this family that make them appear cursed. And clearly there's something very wrong with this house because it's already kind of like infected her cousin. And we're worried it's going to infect our main character. But yes, I'm going to read more now. I feel like I'm gonna fly through this book. I mean, the 85 pages I already read, it was difficult to put down. And yeah, this is like a perfect fall read. This is definitely a really good fall read so far. It has all the Gothic tropes you could ever want. And I'm gonna go get coffee because I just heard the machine finish and sit down and read now. Lunch is served. Hello. It is nearing the end of the day. Unfortunately, today was a bit of a busy day, but I have a couple of important updates. One, I did get Olivia Rodrigo concert tickets, so a round of applause for me. I fought in the war and I won. Two, before I had to stop reading and do a lot of other things, I did get to page 140 of Mexican Gothic, and I'm about to sit down and read more, but the book is gripping me. It's so like eerie and unsettling. The reasons why I like Gothic horror so much is that it doesn't necessarily need to lean on like jump scares. Gothic horror is more about a vibe. It's more about like alluding and having connection to like certain things, like creepy families, multi-generational stuff, like weird houses, losing your mind slowly, questioning your own sanity. It has all of that, and we're learning more about this Doyle family, which is where the house is and where our main character Naomi is, and oof, I have so many questions. So I'm definitely hooked, and I'm gonna read more now, so I'll check in. Hello friends, I'm here with another reading update because I am 2/3 done with Mexican Gothic, and this book is getting so unsettling. So obviously the setup and premise of this book is that our main character goes to this house, and very quickly she gets a sense that something's wrong, not only with the house, with this family, with the past, with this place. Like, there's so many inputs that just feel off. And our main character is incredibly strong-willed. She's also really smart. She's also like street smart in a way. Like, she's not easily manipulated, or when people try to mislead her or like confront her, like she's not afraid to like come at them full force too, which is great. She kind of needs this to kind of deal with whatever the heck is going on. Keep in mind, I have no idea what the heck is going on. Outside of her cousin and her husband Virgil, who literally makes my skin crawl, there's that older man who I've already described, but there's other people in the house too, Francis and Francesca. And she really doesn't have very many allies in this whole situation. And it's very clear that a lot of people are trying to withhold information or put her in vulnerable situations to keep her trapped too. But we still don't understand like functionally what is going on and how it works. There are people who are concerned about her safety and are trying to like remove her from the situation or convince her to leave or try to help her in town. But similarly, like, the mystery remains, and it also feels like people are constantly scared to speak up. And there's also this line between like real and fake in like the blurring of reality, because our main character consistently has these dreams, and she goes from being awake to experiencing a dream like at a snap of a finger, and we don't really know like which is which. And also her dreams feel really strange and dark and scary and involve a lot of people within the house. So there's just this sort of foreboding and lots of unease about like what to trust, who to trust. Like, she's clearly being put in situations where she's supposed to not trust her own mind, which is just so screwed up, to be honest. So yeah, I'm really hooked in this book. I feel like there's so much left to be revealed and to discover, but I am definitely on the edge of my seat. I am so like, ugh. Like, I feel like I am reading this book just like very, very tense. This book definitely centers more like Gothic horror in the scope of people. It's also just like disturbing and kind of gross, like you would expect a Gothic horror to be, but I'm having a good time. Well, I'm having a scary time, but I'm hoping to finish this book tonight, which I don't think will be a problem, especially because I'm on kind of the falling action of stuff. There's only 100 pages left. And in general, I'm just reading this book super quickly, which will put me on track. And then I will start my third book of this vlog very soon. Gourmet dinner tonight. Pizza rolls, fresh out of the oven. My favorite. Big development in this household. Matilda has become a beanbag girl. And it's quite literally my favorite thing in the entire world, when she goes up into this giant beanbag and curls up. The other exciting development in this household is Clay and I have decided to start the very long commitment of watching One Piece. And so far, what are your thoughts on One Piece, Clay?
It's really good.
Your hair is crazy right now.
I look like the lead singer of Motion City soundtrack.
Well, what do you think of One Piece so far?
I think it should be called 1,000 Pieces for the number of episodes it has. Oh, it's really good.
Like, it's not that serious right now. We're not far at all. We're on episode like 14, but it's such a fun way to pass the night. And we watch and we play our Switches. And Matilda, again, she's a beanbag girl, so we're all just hanging out together. It's a great time. I mean, I'm serious. Look at this.
Who's a good girl?
Millie is. Yeah, Millie. Alrighty, guys, it is time for me to finish this book. Ooh. I'm so spooked. My nails kind of match, actually, the cover, which I like. I'm so spooked, but so excited. Let's get to it. Guys, it is really late at night. I'm wearing my retainer. Anyway, I finished Mexican Gothic. This book is one of the weirdest, creepiest, disturbing books I've ever read. So much stuff happened. I'm very unsettled. I need to process it, but oh my god. Trigger warnings galore. Insane. I'm so uncomfortable and just like grossed out. The last 100 pages, a fever dream, which it's supposed to feel like because dreams are a big part of this book. I don't know how I'm supposed to sleep. Anyway, good night. Hi friends, I am up and dressed because I'm actually about to film a video, but I wanted to do a reading update because I did finish Mexican Gothic last night, and this book was a ride. I feel like a lot of Sylvia Moreno's, Garcia's like horror leaning stories, it's a slow burn in the beginning. You're kind of like, what is gonna happen? There's hints, there's mysteries, you know something is wrong, and then there's sort of a switch and everything hits the fan, and that is definitely what happened in Mexican Gothic. This book was so strange and disturbing. I also really appreciated that the author took a lot of well-known Gothic tropes, but then added her own concepts and ideas to them in terms of like the fantasy horror element. And I also like that she took the Gothic concepts and Gothic tropes, not only putting her own spin on the scary parts, but also including topics such as colonialism and racism and eugenics to influence the story and also make it all the more terrifying, like alongside those typical disturbing tropes that you find in Gothic literature, like murder and haunting and incest and all of those things. And it just made it so disturbing. I will say this book has quite a few trigger warnings, so keep that in mind if you're interested in picking this book up. But yeah, I was disturbed, and I also could not put this book down when I read the last third of it. It is just bananas. But yeah, I read this, and then I won't lie, I woke up this morning and I did read 40 more pages of Valor by John Gwen, which does mean I have read 200 pages of this book. It also means I've read 500 pages for this vlog. This book is just so good. I am wholly addicted to this series. It's just like, it feels like a runaway train. There's so much happening and you're reading different things from so many different perspectives. I'm very attached to all of the characters, which I'm happy to report. Well, the characters you're supposed to be attached to anyway. And I'm just so invested. I think about this book all the time. I just want to read it, and I let myself read a bit of it this morning. But fear not, I am gonna pivot to the third book of this vlog this afternoon, which is my best friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, which is also 300 pages. My goal is to read at least half of that book, if not finish it before the end of this vlog, which would put me at a rather hefty page count number, which I would be pleased with. But yeah, finished Mexican Gothic, read a bit more Valor, we've passed the 500 page mark. I am thoroughly disturbed, which was the point of this video. And good times are ahead, or should I say, scary times are ahead. Hi. I am about to head off driving, very proud of myself, to meet up with a friend at a bookstore and a coffee shop for a little bit. I have brought my book with me, which, are you allowed? I mean, it's also a coffee shop, but I'm bringing a book to a bookstore to read, which is the other book for this vlog. So that is the plan. It's a hot one today in Austin, which kind of sucks, but I'm pretending like it's a crisp fall day with my AC blasting. But anyway, I don't want to be late, so I'm on my way. Home in PJs. I did a terrible job vlogging my little excursion today, but it went so well. It's so fun meeting like internet friends IRL. It's like a little friend date, you know, like a little friend first date. And I was so anxious about like driving there and parking, but everything went okay, which we love to see the exposure therapy working. But now I'm gonna make a quick dinner, and then I'm 100% settling in for the evening. I'm gonna read more of this book. I only got to read about like 5 pages, but the vibes were definitely there. It has a really fun like tone and quality to it, so I'm excited to like dive in a bit more in this book. But right now I'm gonna make a quick stir fry, and then it's time to eat. I'm so hungry. The best part about a stir fry is you kind of just use up whatever you have in the fridge. So we're gonna be doing a lot of chopping right now. So let's get to it. steak. I'm getting it a nice crust, and then I'm gonna cook my vegetables. And stir fry is done. Time to add some rice and watch The Ultimatum. Finish The Ultimatum because I'm almost done. You guys already know what's in the oven. Oh yes. These are gonna pair perfectly with Fae Farm and selling the OC. Thriving. And selling OC. Alrighty friends, we are starting this book and I'm really looking forward to it. Good morning, we broke out the fall blend. It's time to drink some coffee and read more. My best friend's Exorcism, which I do have a reading update on because I did read 80 pages last night. Hi friends, I'm about to sit down and read more of my best friend's Exorcism, but I did read 80 pages last night, so I wanted to do a reading update. This book is definitely pretty fun so far. So the concept of the story is that it's set in the 80s. It follows two best friends who are in high school. They do everything together. They've been close since they were young children. And something strange happens one night in the summer, and then one of the girls begins to act very, very differently. The bulk of the first part of the book is really just introducing Gretchen and Abby to us, the reader. The 80s vibes are strong. There's so many references, like how people talk, how society sort of functions is very, I think, like on the nose. Like, and I obviously am not from the 80s, but I have seen Stranger Things. So it definitely gives me like Stranger Things vibes, especially in the fashion and just like the way that the author is able to capture this sort of 80s setting. It's very like teen horror movie vibes. And so far I really appreciate all the time spent kind of showcasing the history of this friendship, because you do really believe that they are like ride or die for each other, which is important to sell, especially as Gretchen begins to act weirder and weirder. And a large part of this book too is that these two girls are living in the South in the 80s, and Ronald Reagan is in office. It's an incredibly conservative time in American history, and appearances in suburban culture are also a significant impact to how people move through society. And also an important factor is that Abby has a lot less money than Gretchen. While yes, they have some power in society as, you know, young white women, which is an important factor, especially as things begin to spiral out of control. But yeah, so far so good. The 80s vibes are strong. So far it's not very scary, and I'm very curious to see like how scary this book is going to get. I think it's going to be more unsettling, but almost like rompy. Like all of the horror might feel like really over the top. Like there's a humorous edge to everything that's going on, and I really feel like it's trying to be influenced by like cult horror films of the time period too, which I think so far is working. But I've also read another book by Grady Hendrix, and I think that book maybe might be scarier to me at this junction, but like nothing really scary has happened yet. I do feel like this book is going to have quite a few trigger warnings, which I do want to mention. Definitely very much influenced by the time in which it is set in, which you can definitely feel while reading the book. But my goal is to try to get halfway through right now. I'm also really obsessed with the cover. I think it's so cool. And then just try to get as far as I possibly can. But 80 pages have been read. I'm gonna keep going, aiming for halfway through this morning, and then I have so much I need to do today. And Clay picked up donuts, and look at this cute little fall box. Even Shipley's knows to get into the fall spirit. So I'm gonna eat one of these. And I'm actually gonna go sit down and read more of my best friend's Exorcism, which is campy. It's a lot less scary than I was anticipating. It also is like very much a satire. Like it's being incredibly critical of, I mean, 80s suburban culture, like the crazy crap that was done and said that was normalized and is so clearly like awful, you know? And a lot of that has to do with like how the plot is even progressing too. Like this book has a lot of triggers. It's actually rather dark while keeping its like somehow lighthearted tone. It's not blowing my mind in any way, but it's definitely utilizing like imperfect characters created by an imperfect society and this like horrible real life possession and exorcism that needs to happen, but also like the violence that existed in this time period is like also at play too. But anyway, I'm gonna eat this. I'm gonna go and sit down and read on the couch, and let's just see how far I can get.
아련히 봤지만 Oh baby I loved you better than I 누군가에겐 하지 않아.
Okay, I've passed the 150 page mark of this book and I have thoughts. So again, this story is centering Gretchen and Abby, two young girls in high school that are generally likable, but are much more, again, I would say this book is like a satire horror story. Like, they're likable and I'm believing their friendship. They're also kind of caricatures of the time period in which this book is set in and the place that this book is set in, informed by the cultural aspects of what's going on and also the societal elements of what's going on too. So I'm reading this book quickly and I'm liking this book, but I wouldn't say I'm like super drawn or heavily invested in the characters. But the plot is a kind of plot that will just like frustrate you, amaze you, kind of freak you out, and it's compelling that I kind of feel like I'm flipping the pages really quickly, if you know what I mean. And with the element of the satire too, like this book is definitely including all of the fun rompy elements of the 80s that we see a lot referenced in our media on a regular basis, but it's also including a lot of the real societal elements that were part of this time period too, and using that to inform kind of the horror elements of it as well. So again, the setup of this is that like Abby and Gretchen, they're BFF, something happened one night and Gretchen starts to act weird. And the part that I've been reading is kind of this spiraling of Gretchen. She's acting stranger and stranger, a little erratic, she can't sleep, she says there's voices in her head, all of these things. And instead of people around her wanting to help her or support her, they're concerned about Gretchen having just followed the rules. They're concerned about how she is going to reflect on them and their image, particularly her parents. There's a lot of purity culture going on and don't do drug culture and just like the policing of youth versus like the helping of youth, you know? And also how other youth will quickly shed people who could possibly reflect badly on them too. Like all of these things are kind of informing the horror elements of what's happening. And you very quickly get the sense that the only person who really wants to help Gretchen is her best friend Abby, but also nobody wants to believe Abby. And the more that Abby speaks up, the more that she's vilified for what's happening to Gretchen. They both have like different power dynamics within society too. Gretchen comes from a wealthy and powerful family in town where Abby does not. Abby is quickly painted as kind of the bad influence on Gretchen and she's quickly like ostracized and kept to the side, while Abby is trying her best to just try to save her friend and speak up for her, especially because she thinks something terrible happened to Gretchen that night in the woods, not really knowing exactly what, that it might have something to do with assault. And things are just kind of spiraling quickly. But I will say like the tone and the style of this book never leaves its sort of 80s horror high school flick vibe, which again I think works within like the horror satire of it all, but I wouldn't necessarily say like the author is trying to go really deep in some of these heavy topics, which I can understand could be bothersome in general. And I would say I'm liking this book. I'm not loving this book. It's really not very scary. I was expecting it to be more scary because I've read another book by this author which was super scary, but I wouldn't say this book has been like super creepy, super disgusting. Like don't get me wrong, there's dark stuff happening, but overall it has kind of like a strange lighter tone at play, though it's not a light read, but hopefully I'm making sense. But anyway, I'm gonna try to read a bit more now, but I wanted to give y'all an update because I am about halfway through.
Little Miss Matilda enjoying her time in the sun. Such a silly girl.
Hello, I read to page 220. This book reads crazy fast. And I also will stand by, I wouldn't say it's like horribly scary. It's disturbing and uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable at this point because of the horror elements, though I imagine it will ramp up, especially as we get to the conclusion. It's more like shocking and uncomfortable, you know? But not in the way I was necessarily expecting, but I feel like the possession elements are gonna get worse and worse and worse. So yeah, I would also say I'm feeling a little middle of the road about this book. I'm finding it to be a quick and engaging read, but I don't know if it's one that will like stick with me for a long time. It's by no means bad. It's kind of doing its job. It's entertaining, but it's also not necessarily going to be like an all-time favorite, it's my new personality trait, like kind of thing either. But I only have about 100 pages of this book left, so we're gonna see how this whole thing wraps up between Abby and Gretchen. Will Abby be able to save her friends despite everything going against her? the school, Gretchen's parents, her parents, all of her friends. It's really like Abby against the world right now. She's truly a good friend. I gotta say it. But yeah, anyway. Spooky scary, but not too spooky scary. Which I'm a little surprised by, but not necessarily mad at. Hi guys, and welcome to the end of the vlog. The next day, I wrote a lot for this vlog, like a bunch, about 850 pages. So let's go ahead and wrap up everything I read. So I was actually able to finish My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I liked this book. I didn't love this book. It's kind of sitting middle of the road for me. Oddly, I feel like it could have been scarier, which I'm shocked to say, because I don't know if I've ever uttered that sentence before in my life, but I feel like it was eerie, but it could have like pushed it further a bit. I like the friendship dynamics, like the 80s setting. But also I just felt like the story was just kind of like okay for me through and through. So not terrible, fun, rompy, 80s horror flick vibes for sure, but isn't necessarily one that like knocked my socks off, you know? I did, however, really liked Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, full of all of my favorite sort of Gothic tropes. This author's writing is just one of my favorites. And I just really appreciate how she goes about her plotting and just story writing, character writing. I just really resonate with this author's books. I just always tend to enjoy them. And this was just a solid pickup for me. And then lastly, I did read 250 pages of Valor. I've been trying, and I feel like ultimately failing to not let this entire series take over every ounce of my life. To say that I flew through the first 250 pages of this book is an understatement. I cannot stop thinking about the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwen. It's addicting. It's just so intense. I need to read more. But I read 250 pages of this for this vlog, and that's where we're at. A good collection of things, which I am pleased with. But I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.